Hello, welcome to Regular Train Reviews, a podcast-like format that will not be released regularly, nor is it really reviews, but it is about trains, and that's what matters. My name is Freddie. My pronouns are he and him. I am some dude who likes trains, and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Nick. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a creature on the internet who has takes and opinions. And I also like trains. Why have car when you can have train?
So true. As you can probably see, if you're looking at the slides, no problem if not, we will attempt to describe everything for audio-only listeners. We are talking today about the Eurostar E300, one of the trains of all time, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Basically, what we do in this show is we just talk about our opinions and feelings about a different type of train every episode, and sort of the aesthetics of this type of train, and yeah, what we think about it in like a
Yeah.
in a very subjective way. We're not we're not saying that yeah, these are our opinions and feelings, and that's
These
about
are
it.
these are our opinions and we hold them dear to our hearts
Exactly.
and take them as such.
Yes. If you
Great. Should we?
disagree, that's fine. Just know that you are wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's basically it. If you have any questions or comments, you can find us on Don't Worry About It. Um,
exactly.
yeah, should we get into it? Should we start talking about the Eurostar E300?
Yeah, let's get into it. So, uh, yeah, so they were built by Alstom in the early 90s. There were 38 built and only 11 of them are still in service for reasons we will talk about later. Um, E300 is what they are called now, but they were originally just called Eurostar or Transmanche Supertrain. They were also designated class, I believe it's 373 by British Railways,
Yeah,
because
they were
they
the class
always have to have
373.
numbers for their trains for some reason. And because of the E320 being introduced more recently, they retroactively added the name E300. So that's what is referred to as today, but for most of their lifetime, they were just referred to as Eurostar, which is way cooler in my opinion.
Yeah.
They were made for and mostly used by Eurostar, but there are some domestic operators in both Britain and France over time that we will talk about further on in the episode. And they're pretty interesting.
And they were refurbished in 2005, which is an entirely new interior. And then they were repainted to match the new livery, which we will also talk about later in 2008 onwards. I don't think all of them that are still in service have been entirely repainted yet, but I think most of them have. But they are, a good example of iconography coming out of this very particular time period in Britain and France and the greater European network. So we'll get into that.
Yes, we will. As for their capabilities, they're designed to operate on 3 different voltages. So there were a couple different overhead voltages for French high-speed lines and Belgian like conventional main lines, as well as a 750 volt DC third rail for the British Network Southeast that for the first, I don't even know how long, at least a decade, they operated on these really slow legacy main lines under third rails into Waterloo Station.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're very capable,
And
and
they're kind of very, robust in terms of dealing with the craziness of voltages that you see across like the inter-European network.
yes,
They're technically an EMU because the first passenger trailer car also contains a powered axle, all right, 2 powered axles,
mhm,
which draws power obviously from the pantograph or third rail, depending on where the train's running. They don't use the third rails much anymore because they're all operating out of the new station, the new international station in London. But in the event that it would, in any event of where it's drawing power from, they're using these 3 powered bogies on each train set.
Yes, I believe the HS1 or the Channel Tunnel Rail Link, which is the new-ish high-speed line from London St. Pancras to like the entrance of the Channel Tunnel. I believe that is standard with the French high-speed rail
Hmm.
lines. So they really only have to use their 25 kilovolt AC overhead power. I think Belgium also has some standardized lines as well in there. So yeah, they mostly don't need all the capabilities they were built with. But when they were built, it was really quite a hodgepodge of networks they operated on, which is
Yeah.
fun. Being built by Alstom, they're a derivative of the TGV. That's the classic French high-speed train, and they have the incredible distinction of having the lowest power to weight ratio of any member of the TGV family. And we love them for it.
Yeah. And uh, yep, I think I mentioned this before, but they're technically an electric multiple unit because they do have, instead of power cars on each end like the TGV family, they do have a second powered car on each end of the train set. So under a technicality, they get that distinction.
Yep. But they're also a lot longer than most TGVs. So
Yeah,
really
the
the benefit of whatever benefit there was of that powered axle is canceled out pretty
they
hard by that.
they they were the longest passenger trains in the world for a while. They run at 18 carriages each, and they actually have redundant sets of like first class business coach, whatever, cafe cars. Like there are 9 sets of those cars on each end of the train that are coupled together. Um, it's very weird, but it's also delightful.
Oh yeah, very. They have like fireproof doors between the cars that they always close when they're entering the tunnel, right?
Yeah, that was part of the fireproofing and safety stuff, that you couldn't walk between them for those 20 minutes that you were in the Channel Tunnel, which, according to people who worked on the trains and still do work on the trains, that is annoying.
Yeah,
Um,
I can imagine. Wow.
but it was designed to ensure that if there was a problem with the train, or if there's a fire contained in any, if there's a fire inside or outside of the train, that it would be contained.
Yeah.
Which is an inherent problem that you're going to have to deal with when running high-speed trains through tunnels.
Yep. So let's get into sort of, I guess, the meat and potatoes of this show, the aesthetics of the Eurostar. Huge fan of this train. I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely.
How do we even
Absolutely.
start to describe this, Nick?
I think that like the thing to describe about the Eurostar is that it blends a lot of the aesthetic of both, French design. French trains have this very iconic design that went into things like the original TGV, like, the classic striking orange, and also the very like muted modern TGVs. Like, granted, TGV has started to come back and kind of like go into more bold design, like on the SNCF network, but it also combines a lot of the aesthetics of British rail, and the yellow front indicating this is a train, please watch out for it. And the yellow trim line, the dark blues and reds that we see are very kind of classic Britain, coupled with this very iconic French profile and sleek design. They have like a steeper nose than TGV trains. TGV trains kind of have like a more protruding snout, if you will.
Yeah.
But they look, in a way more modern. They're very like exemplary of the 90s in their design. And I think that's really, really neat. They also have this kick-ass font at least for the first
The original
decade.
logo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks so much better than the new one. We'll see the new one in a bit, but yeah, that font is just lovely.
If I could download that font and write everything that I need to write in it, I would.
Yes, so true. Um, yeah, looking at this photo, so we have two Eurostars, the noses of the power cars side by side on parallel tracks, and you can see that there's these very like angle, so they have like fairly rounded cross sections on the noses. Like there's not many flat surfaces in front of the like the driver's window.
Mhm.
And then as it slopes at like, I don't know, what is that, like a 30-40 degree angle
Yeah.
down, all like the access and maintenance panels on the side are angled more or less to match that slope. They're very, yeah, like they're very visible, but they also fit the form of the nose so well. It feels almost aerospace in that regard.
Yeah, it really does. It feels very much like you look at like French and British collaboration in terms of like industry in the past. You look at Concorde, you look at like kind of looking to the future, Airbus, and like uh this reminds me almost of the nose of the A350.
Hmm.
Um, it kind of has this like very unique like retro future feel.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I place the E300 Eurostars in the same kind of field as like Hotel, you know,
Hmm.
the the SSTO concept, the single stage to orbit concept, Concorde and things like that. It's like this bonkers concept, but it feels like this was like a step towards the future.
Yeah, definitely. It's very futuristic, but in sort of like a rawly pragmatic way that you don't really see nowadays.
Like when we see futuristic things now, you know, they're made out of renderite.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This is most definitely made of metal, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. But it's still, I don't think it looks dated today. I think
Oh
it's
no, not at all.
lovely. Also, note the like the yellow cheat line at the bottom. You can see how it follows the curve of like the wheelbase shroud, if you call it,
Hmm.
if you want to call it that. Like it forms this just continuous curve up from the bottom of the vehicle, that would otherwise be cut off by the bottom of like the car body. Um, that's just a really nice touch, I think. Yeah, it's just so good. Um, exquisite. I
Exquisite
love it so
design.
much. Here we have another photo. It's sort of like a low angle looking up at a train that's presumably running at speed.
I think this is in France too, because I think those are the catenaries of these in France.
Oh, I
Because
see.
I think in Britain they had the continuous like uh the just like the catenary mast that supported all the way across, but in France they didn't do that.
Oh, interesting.
So let's talk about the window.
The window, it's so small. It's a
And
very
there's a
small
reason.
window. If you look at like the TGVs or other high-speed trains, you will see like a window that goes pretty much all the way across the front of the vehicle. But
It's almost
this
like an
is,
aircraft flight deck. And this
yeah,
is very much not.
it's little and very tall. Um, yeah, what do you want to say about the window, Nick?
So, you know, when they were running tests and like, you know, working on this project, you know, remember when the Channel Tunnel and Eurostar were kind of in development, it was one of the world's biggest infrastructure projects. So there were a lot of variables that they needed to deal with. And one thing that they were worried about is for the drivers of the trains, you know, you're in the Channel Tunnel for about 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes. You're running, I think you're running in like the 140s, 160s through the tunnel. I could be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I don't remember.
I don't either.
Let's just assume you're right.
I've done it. I've done it like a couple times. I do not remember it. But the window was designed to be small enough and not have as much peripheral vision, so the driver wouldn't potentially deal with hypnotic effects of the tunnel and potentially, you know, become distracted or lose awareness.
Hmm.
And it just ends up with this very narrow little like porthole thing. It almost is very reminiscent of the APT.
Yes, the APT prototype.
Both like the APT test train and then
The
the
HST prototype as well.
Yeah, the HST prototype, which had these like very like almost military vehicle looking fronts. They had kind of a similar aesthetic with the APT.
Tall, narrow windows, and the train operators unions really didn't like that because it implied that they were going to operate it with only one crew member in the cab.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an infamous incident in the APT development where like the entire workforce refused to work on it because it had the narrow window. But that's beside the point. I don't think that was the intended design here.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I like about this design is like the clustering of the headlights and like the horn grill. I think that's what that thing in the middle is. You've got this panel with like these oval perforations in it between the two headlights, and the headlights form sort of like a horizontal line, and that panel is right in the middle of them, and it's just so neat, you know?
Yeah.
I think it just looks, I love this train so much.
One thing that's super interesting about Eurostar trains versus like their TGV cousins is TGV trains are much shorter, right? And so oftentimes you'll see TGV trains run coupled.
Oh yeah.
And Eurostar trains have couplers in this kind of like split front that you see. And there's like a little protruding little dude there that'll assist with coupling. They can be coupled and pulled by other locomotives or, be coupled to another train set. They almost never run coupled. And I think that's partially because of the lengths of station platforms in the places that they serve. Because, they're already a long train, and sticking a 18 plus 18, wow, I can't do math today.
There are no stations that long. It doesn't matter. It's too many.
Yeah. Sticking a 36 car train in Gare du Nord is like non-viable.
No, not at all. Which is to say they are perfect and they need no augmentation.
They need no augmentation.
We love them.
We love them.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit more about this classic paint scheme. It's just yellow and white. That's the entire scheme. There's like the black I think it's for anti-glare around the cab windows.
Yeah, and it has that little lip.
Yeah, but we just have like a yellow stripe at the top that slopes down to the front, goes around like the headlights. Oh, hey, there's a car alarm going off outside. I don't know if you can hear that.
Woo, car alarm!
Yeah, okay, it stopped. And then we've got the yellow cheat line at the bottom. It's very simple, very classy. And yeah, I think it blends like the function of like the safety markings with like this very simple and somehow futuristic aesthetic. Really,
you have the black, this blue black roof across the entire train. And it's not really super visible from this angle that we're looking at, this like kind of upward 3/4 shot. But if you were to stand next to the train while it's running, first of all, it makes a great sound. Second of all, you'd see like this blue black sheet line on the top. It looks quite nice.
Oh yeah. So, can't go wrong with this classic aesthetic, but many other paint schemes, well, several other paint schemes have been used at times, and I think we should just go through these and take a look at them, say what we think of them. So, oh yeah, here's another picture.
Here's it coming out of a tunnel at Stratford International, which is kind of like a feeder station. It doesn't really get served by Eurostar that much. It is technically a stop.
They have like a separate signaling system for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it has 5 signaling systems. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't know why it's like that. But Stratford International mostly only has domestic surfaces, ironically.
It does feed I think exiting the next tunnel out of Stratford International, or like kind of continuing from there, is what feeds onto High Speed 1. So it was kind of built in the development of High Speed 1. It's a weird station. It's served by local Javelin service, which is the only dedicated high-speed domestic service for Britain.
And I don't think it's actually fully dedicated either.
Oh, yeah.
Like they run on the Network Southeast as well to a lot of different destinations. I don't know if any services are only on the HS1.
That wouldn't
but
make
I
a
know
lot of sense, would it?
aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into the weird paint schemes.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
we got to talk about the repaint. I don't like it. It's terrible.
I
think
don't
it
either.
loses the classiness. Why would you paint something gray? Why?
Yeah.
It changes the shape of like the yellow front end, makes it a lot smaller, makes it look like it's sort of being stretched, like it's a piece of fabric.
And they switched the font from this beautiful kind of like clearly inspired by European, like maybe like coats of arms or something, to like an Arial font.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look great.
It looks...
I think this is
not great, no.
My personal take is that the new paint scheme looks really good on the replacement Eurostars, which we will have a whole episode probably talking about the variety of Siemens Velaros that exists.
Yes.
That exist. But I think retroactively applying something to fit a brand image damages the overall iconography of this train, because this train is an iconic train. It was the symbol of a great link between Europe and Britain, which unfortunately in the face of Brexit has been, irreparably damaged.
Just a bit.
And I think, a lot of people look back at Eurostar as this kind of like crowning achievement for inter-European relationships. And I don't think that the new train inspires that kind of same feeling. I took the new class E320s when I was in London in 2019, and they are a very striking train. The Siemens Velaros are these very bold, interesting trains, and they maintain some of the iconography of the yellow front and the deep blues, but like I looked to my right on the platform, and there is this just like amazingly beautifully iconic E300, and I just kind of sat there and like, damn, I wish I was on that one.
Yeah, there's a real neatness and simplicity to the old livery that's completely lost. If you look at this photo we have here of an old livery E300 and the new livery E300, they're both on a platform, well, on parallel platforms at St. Pancras station. You see the new livery, it has like this, it does have the yellow cheat line at the bottom, but it starts above the bottom of the car body, and it's just sort of painted on there. It doesn't follow the curves of any part of the vehicle. It's just slapped on there. It overlaps with like panel borders.
It looks like
you
a
can see this
decal.
access panel. It's just slapped on there.
Yeah.
At risk of repeating myself. It's not designed for this vehicle.
No.
It's designed for a newer vehicle that we can talk about later, but a lot is lost here. And I don't like it at all.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get weird with the liveries.
Let's get weird, even weirder.
Even fucking weird. The green guy.
Here's the green guy. So you can see
Buzz
here,
Lightyear looking ass.
So true. Yeah, they Buzz Lightyearized the E300.
They de-ossified it, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think this is like a low cost.
Yeah, it's like a Spirit Airlines, but for TGVs.
Which they're doing like a lot of like
there's several different
liveries.
operators like that. I don't understand them.
There are a
But
couple that have like some banging liveries, but there are a couple that are just like, ugh.
oh yeah.
This is an instant no from me.
I'm gonna defend this one.
Okay.
Okay, to describe what we're looking at here, we've got an E300 and it's got this white, green, and purple livery. So at the top, you've got like a purple stripe, very similar to like the dark blue on the original.
Mhm.
And since it operates entirely within France, you have green going down on the front from there to just above the headlights. It's sort of a, I don't know what kind of green that is. It's like,
I would say it's like a lime.
yeah, close to lime green. And then you've got this Izzy logo on there. I'm gonna defend it. It's better than the new Eurostar livery. I will give it that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Specifically on this vehicle.
it follows the form of the vehicle well. And further along, you've got like purple doors and like a big green stripe around the windows. You've got like some green circles on the end of each car that are a lighter shade of green. I don't hate it. I think it kind of looks nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Green
I
Eurostar gets a thumbs up from Freddie.
it doesn't get a thumbs up from me because I think any livery other than what it's there is one exception to this that we'll talk about.
Yes.
But any livery other than the original livery is just like not it for me.
Yeah.
All right, conflicting opinions. Yes,
Yes. The best
Goth
one.
E300.
Goth E300, my beloved. It's
I love this
gorgeous. It's perfect.
It's
It
goth.
has all the classiness with an added. Yeah, it's so good. I love it. Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about it. It maintains the like iconography of the yellow front. It's got a red trim line, which looks fucking sick. It just is so cool. I love
It's got
it.
like a small red pinstripe at the top.
So these ran
for reference, this is Great Northeastern Rail, which was the East Coast mainline operator in the early 2000s, I think. It was, as so many British rail privatized operators are, it was owned by some ungodly amalgamation of shell companies.
Oh yeah.
I have no idea who who
And
owns
so-
it at the end of the day. But
so
they look
these are-
nice. They operated Eurostars for a while. I believe entirely on domestic routes.
And they were shorter Eurostars.
Oh, that's
Fun
right.
fact.
They had fewer cars.
I think they were 12 or 16 cars
Yeah.
instead of the 18. I think that was obviously to save money on operator cost and also to save money on crew cost. But they were shorter Eurostars, which is weird.
Short
Fun
kings,
fact,
we love them.
fun fact about the Eurostar, the only other train that was the longer passenger train than the original Eurostars in terms of car length was Amtrak's Auto Train.
And that depends on whether you count the cars as part of a passenger train.
Under Amtrak's definition, and to skirt the FRA, yes.
Yeah.
But no, these guys were super cool. They ran kind of in the 90s, I think into the 2000s. And it was part, I think, of like the larger Night Star idea, which envisioned not just Eurostar trains running through the Channel Tunnel, but special dual mode trains and passenger cars running through the Channel Tunnel, connecting into the night train network of Europe that, in the face of the pandemic, has seen a resurgence.
But yeah, it would have been like sleeper services from like Edinburgh and Birmingham through the tunnel.
I think Inverness too.
Inverness, wow.
Yeah,
that's way out there. Through the tunnel to all sorts of cities in Europe, maybe as far as like into Germany and
yeah. One of the big connection
probably
points
not
is Munich.
Spain because of the gauge change.
Yeah, one
Oh
of the
my
big
God,
connection points
imagine a
was
Eurostar. Imagine a dual gauge Eurostar for operation between Britain, France, and Spain.
if Renfe can do it, you know, more power to them. They're running
I
Velar,
think it needs to happen. I think we need the most technically complex train ever built just for the sake of technological achievement, you know?
if Renfe is running Velaros,
Yeah,
um,
I'm sure
that
they can
can
do it.
that change gauges, I think.
Let's hope they do.
I just want to see a pato in St. Pancras.
Yes, that would rule.
The flat fuck.
We lo- we love we
We'll
love
have to
El
do a
Pato,
whole
and we will talk
discussion.
about him in another episode.
We should do an episode of just Talgo trains.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we should.
Okay.
Another
Off
rare
topic.
look. Another domestic French operator. This is just operating the Eurostar as a normal TGV. It looks, I don't like it. It's
Bad.
weird.
It's bad. So, like, for everyone listening at home without your eyes, the silver, it's the base Eurostar livery that we talked about earlier when we were introducing the Eurostar livery, but with a white front and a silver nose and like a very puffy paint style TGV livery on the side that thank God they retired.
Yeah. And then it's got like blue and green stripe, or like, what do you call those? Vertical stripes along the window line?
Yeah.
Like at the end of each car. It's just strange.
It's weird. I don't have much to say about it. I just think it like looks bad.
Yeah, it's better than the new Eurostar livery still.
Yeah.
But it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
Note that since it's operating only within France, they don't need the yellow front end.
Yeah.
Which it's just a specifically British safety feature. So they just have it silver, and it looks wrong.
It looks weird and bad. It thinks it wants to be a TGV duplex, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I have nothing further to say. I don't like him.
This. It's not supposed to be like this. We have the abandoned Eurostar covered in graffiti. There's like a big purple bubble letters near like the cab door. I think the purple looks really nice. They should.
I think it kind of bangs.
Purple. Yeah, I think so. Unfortunate that we never saw one this cool looking in operation.
Yeah, that would have been a win for train spotters everywhere.
I think so. They should open train livery design to the public like this sometime.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like with freight trains in the US.
Just like with freight trains.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exactly like that. We've got two power cars coupled together.
Which technically means
very short Eurostar.
That this is no longer an EMU because they are both independently powered cars.
That's right. These are just two locomotives
hanging
sitting on a siding. Less than 5 feet apart because presumably they're gay.
That's true.
We love them for it. And these are the pink and like the magenta and turquoise power cars that were donated to like high-speed rail colleges in Birmingham and Doncaster. I think they look nice. They've kind of got the same form as the original livery, but they're brightly colored. I think it's really pretty.
Yeah, I don't like the blue one as much, but the magenta one is kind of doing it for me. The weird thing
slaps.
The weird thing about like where we are in Eurostar history as we transition into the new trains and kind of the greater expansion of European trains into London is that, we're seeing new liveries and new ideas, and the idea of an all pink train is not that unusual. Like Renfe operates an all pink train, but I think the all pink train kind of works. I think the all blue is just like a little too much.
More pink trains.
That's true.
I just think they're neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in conclusion, the E300s are gradually going away. As we said at the beginning, only 11 are still in service because the majority have been replaced with this Siemens Velaro-derived E320. And you can see the new livery looks kind of nice on them. We can talk about Velaro derivatives in another episode, but they're cool. They're EMUs in the classical sense of the term. They've got, they've got no dedicated power cards. It's all distributed. I don't know how I feel about them. To me, they represent sort of a homogenization of high-speed rail that I don't love. I get the practical benefits, but there's just something ambitious and unique about the E300 that just isn't there with the E320, and it doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah, there's something so nice and individual about kind of the early forays of inter-European high-speed rail, that you had all these like amazing individual trains and kind of like little weirdo testbed trains that entered development, and it's just like not there anymore. Like TGV and kind of German derived trains are becoming the standard, and like even in places where we see like Renfe's like indigenous Spanish trains, they're gradually getting replaced with German and French built train sets, so you're kind of becoming homogenized, and like perhaps that is a sign of like greater inter-European connectedness, and like I think that's inherently a good thing, that all these communities and cultures are connected via a sustainable and eco-friendly transportation method. But for the person who looks at this from a historical perspective, it is kind of weird to see the individuality kind of go away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad from an aesthetic standpoint. Like, yeah, as global trade tends to standardize things, and it gets less aesthetically interesting. And just, these unique technical innovations are replaced by perhaps a more practical and more streamlined, but less compelling, less viscerally interesting, if that makes sense. New things. So yeah, there's sort of a melancholy angle of looking into the future from this perspective. Yeah, we'll miss you, E300.
We will miss you.
Thank you for being
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Yeah.
And I think with that, I think that's all we got to say about the E300.
I think that's it.
Okay.
For reasons of chaos, we are adding a bonus segment where we try to categorize some ambiguous,
some nebulous shapes,
rail systems. So today we're talking about, is BART a commuter rail system? So on the left side of the screen, we've got the BART system map. It's this highly interlined system. There aren't any perpendicular interchanges in it, but you've got like 4 lines running parallel through San Francisco to Daly City. And then you've got them sort of branching out on the East Bay down to Fremont and Dublin and Pittsburgh and Richmond.
And then across the bay,
to be clear, these are all this is Dublin, Pittsburgh, and Richmond, California. This is not a transcontinental system or intercontinental system. And then we've also got a couple branches down to Millbrae and SFO on the peninsula. And so this brings up the question, is it a metro, is it an S-Bahn, or is it a commuter rail system? So what do you think, Nick?
I originally thought I thought I could be contrarian and argue that this was a U-Bahn system, but I realized that I was a fool, and that this is absolutely an S-Bahn. I will say it is not an interurban.
No, definitely not.
It is not an interurban in the way that the Washington Metro Area Transit Authority is an interurban, but it is difficult. It wants to be a subway so bad.
Yeah.
But it's just not. BART is like one of the great feats of American engineering, especially looking at like the Transbay Tube and stuff like that.
It's
but
a lot like Eurostar in that way, isn't it?
It's a lot like you. Oh my God, you're so right.
The original BART rolling stock makes me feel the same things that the original Eurostar does. It's
so
this
true.
very unique thing, and it's very innovative and ambitious, and in some ways that vision is turning out to be something of a historical dead end. BART is the only system in North America that's as wide gauge as it is.
It's so wide.
E-BART was built at a completely different gauge for unclear reasons. The rolling stock is all very custom, and that causes some headaches for procurement and maintenance. But it's so cool,
It's so cool. It's like what the future was supposed to be in 1960.
Yeah, it's such a blend of different practices as well.
Like if you went back in time to 1960 and you told someone from San Francisco, hey, by the way, there's going to be this amazing like system that is going to be built all across San Francisco that'll, electric trains under the bay, that'll connect the airport to downtown to all these other places, you'd be like, you're a dirty liar.
Yeah.
But I think that, BART is absolutely an S-Bahn. You see the convergence of lines and the interchanging and interlining. Interlining is not always your friend, but for BART, it works.
Personally, I'm going to argue that it's commuter rail just for the sake of being contrarian.
Okay. Okay.
So it is like, well, maybe not commuter rail, but it's definitely regional rail.
Okay.
And I think in a mostly conventional American sense. I am going to argue that its operations are a little more like something like New Jersey Transit than a traditional S-Bahn. It converges around, it very much converges into like a central segment. But there's also some like crosstown lines, like on the East Bay. I believe that's the Orange line. And that reminds me a lot of like the Metrolink Orange County Inland Empire line. I don't think it quite fits the S-Bahn topology. And for that reason, I'm going to make the very unfounded argument that it's commuter/regional rail.
But the thing is, there's already commuter rail in the area, like on both sides of the bay. Could this be a feeder? Is it feeder commuter rail to other commuter rail? Do we just have an infinitely tessellating system of commuter rails that feed into other commuter rails?
I mean, some people commute on the Capitol Corridor, so yes, there's an infinitely tessellating system.
God.
Wow.
Perhaps we should just delete the state of California, and then there will be peace. We will not do this.
Please don't.
I like BART. I like BART.
I like BART.
BART's very friend-shaped. I think of all the public transit in the US, I would argue that BART is one of the most friend-shaped.
Absolutely.
We don't have any pictures of BART for you, but just like imagine a very wide type guy.
A wide, asymmetric, streamlined, subway-like car. It's beautiful.
He's just kind of a dude.
He's just a little guy, a very wide little guy.
He's like not little at all. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's huge.
What's the gauge again? Is it like exactly 5 feet?
It's 5 feet 6.5, which is the same gauge that is used in a lot of metro systems in India. It's interesting. Recently there was like a period of very high winds in the East Bay, and Bart tweeted about how their trains are extra stable because of their wide gauge. So maybe it's paid off.
There's like an urban legend. I don't know how founded this is, but like the original alignment looked at running it like in the median on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh yeah.
And to Marin County. And first of all, that would be whack. Second of all, if they did do that, I guess the wide gauge for wind stability would be quite good. But
yeah. If you want to learn more about Marin County BART plans, Seung Lee wrote a really good article on his Substack about that.
Yeah,
go check that out.
We'll probably link that somewhere.
They do very informative writing there. Yeah, so those are some thoughts on the BART network topology. Yeah. Anything else to say?
No. I guess do you have anything to plug?
Not really. If you want to yell at me on Twitter for whatever reason, you can find me at Synesti. That's SYNESTI. I post there sometimes, and sometimes it's funny, maybe.
Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I think it's like 70-30. Funny. I give you a pretty good rating.
Thanks.
You can also find me on Twitter at defconfuck. That's DEFCONFUCK. I post about my writing projects. You know, I'm working on an alternate history project right now that is many years in the making. So go check that out.
Highly recommend.
New posts every Monday if you like weird space history. But yeah, you can also find me on Twitter, where I am sometimes funny and sometimes I just tweet the word
Often funny, I argue.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, that's me.
All right. I think that's the episode.
I think that's it. Good work, everyone.
I think we're done.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.